Anyway, good morning, everybody. I am going to introduce the most handsome man in the room with me right now.
I could be a part-time model.
I could be a part-time model, he says. Oh my goodness, you can squeeze over here.
I will.
Oh, you're gonna make a debut. Yeah. He's gonna pop in. He's gonna slide in. But guys, Dr. B, you guys have asked in this push for us to talk about building strength and how to build strength. I am not even close to or will I even pretend to be qualified to teach you that. But luckily, my amazing husband is double board certified chiropractor with an emphasis in sports medicine. Yeah, sorry, baby. There's a lot. So he knows the stuff, and he is giving us his brain today to teach us how to build strength and how to build our own little workout programs for ourselves, meeting ourselves where we are. So please join me in welcoming the amazing and the handsome, as Miss Patty calls you, Dr. Cutie Pie. But guys, my awesome hubby, Dr. B, you guys know him, you love him, we all know him and love him. But come on in here, babe. Welcome. All right, I'm going to let you coach, so I'm not here distracting you and talking over you and all that. But guys, enjoy learning from B. Take some notes, learn some things. Seriously, he cares about your bodies. That sounds bad. He cares about your bodies. He loves your bodies. And he wants to make sure that no one is out there hurting themselves or doing things you shouldn't be doing yet. And you're meeting yourself with grace where you are right now. So babe, thank you so much for being on with us today. I'm going to go lay my sick little butt down while you coach the tribe. So I love you guys. When you're done, just end it and hit end and say forever on there. Okay. So, all right. Enjoy. Love you. All right. Do a good job.
So we are talking about building strength. So you're going to have to forgive me a little bit because I'm used to talking to kind of formally educated individuals, doctors, medical students, things like that. So I'm going to break down some of the terminology to kind of help make this, make sense a little bit more. Some of you that maybe have medical backgrounds or, health and fitness backgrounds, you will probably understand what I'm talking about a little bit more, but I'm going to do my best to break it down because this is not just like going to the gym and picking up a weight and just going to town. There's a lot more that's involved with that. There's a lot more strategy, a lot more mindset stuff that you need to know, because otherwise you can either hurt yourself or you can burn yourself out, which both are detrimental to your journey. So we want to make sure to give you sound advice on how to work out, how to program. We use the word movement a lot. That's our terminology in the tribe for working out. Okay. So working out kind of, or going to the gym or whatever, it gets a little bit of a bad rap sometimes and really turns off people to wanting to take on a health journey. And so we use the term movement to kind of, make it a little bit more playful, make it a little bit more softer sounding. So if you hear me use the term movement, if you hear me use the term working out, they're interchangeable. Just know that that's exactly what I'm talking about. So we're talking about building strength because why? Why would we not just want to go in and sit on a treadmill or run on a treadmill, do an elliptical machine, do a bike, just walk all the time? Why would we not want to do that? That sounds like, good advice, right? Well, it's not. Yes, you will lose weight. However, you can lose the wrong type of weight. You see, when you do mainly cardio activities such as walking, running, elliptical, bikes, like cycling or recumbent bikes, whatever. Recumbent bike is just a bike where you, instead of sitting up, right, you're kind of sitting back in more of a chair and your legs are out in front of you, almost like you could watch TV while you're doing that. That's what a recumbent bike is. And so when you're doing those things, you're using different energy systems in your body that's training more of your cardiovascular nature, and for endurance, not necessarily fat burning. Okay. So there's a difference between working out for fat loss and working out for cardiovascular strength. Now we need to have a good balance of both, and we're going to talk about that. But at the same time, the research has proven, most recently the research has proven that building strength and building more muscle, not bulking up into a bodybuilder, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about building and toning strength. that will actually increase your metabolism throughout the day longer and burn more calories over a longer period of time. What's funny is that there's a lot of misconceptions about building strength, especially when it involves women. Women typically don't want to be bulky. However, there is a trend right now where bulk is beautiful, okay? And so if you fall into that category, that's completely fine. But what we want to crush is this whole notion of if I lift weights, I'm just going to get huge, I'm going to get big, I'm going to get bulky. That's not true, okay? Because there's a way to work out where you don't do that. And we're going to talk about those things. Okay, so here's where we dive into some definitions. I'm going to kind of adjust us just a little bit more here. All right, so we're building strength. We're going to define a couple of things. Number one, what is strength? Because strength can be mean multiple different things. Have you ever gone to pick up a milk jug? You thought it was empty, but it was actually full, okay? And it felt different. Or vice versa. You thought it was full, but it was empty, and you lifted it up and it went really high, right? So your brain can actually predict how much strength your body needs to do a certain movement, okay? You know exactly how much strength it takes to open your car door every day, how much strength it takes to carry your purse or your backpack or your bag, your work bag. You know exactly all those things. Your brain is very good at predicting your environment, okay? And so that way it can do what's easiest, not what's best. So the brain, this is a good point to write down. The brain and the body will always do what's easiest, not what's best, okay? So we have to purposely stay on track with what we're doing when it involves movement in our health journey, okay? So strength can be power. It can be explosive power. It could be endurance. There's like an endurance type of strength. Like somebody's really strong at running, if you're running an ultra marathoner like Carol in the tribe, she has a type of strength that's more endurance based, right? If you're like somebody that's more like kind of like Erin, okay? She's more strength, like short-term stuff, like really powerful, okay? So there's different types of strength. We want to have a good balance of all of it, unless you are sport specific. Now, most of us aren't, okay? What we consider in our health industry, in strength and conditioning, that kind of thing, there's two different categories of clientele or patients, whatever you want to classify all of us. There is the athlete, okay? That's the athlete that is, it doesn't have to be a competitive athlete. It could be somebody that's maybe in CrossFit. It could be maybe somebody that just likes to run, likes to be good, maybe was an athlete in high school or in college. You've got the athlete and they train like an athlete. Then you've got general population. That's where most of us reside. We still are pretty sporty, still spry, still nice, and we can get around really well, but we're not going to train like an athlete. We're not going to train the way an Olympic athlete would train, okay? We're more of a general population. I'm going to call that gen pop, all right? Kind of like the prison term, gen pop, all right? So that's what we classify people in. So we're going to kind of rely more on this gen pop phase. And if you are wanting to train more like an athlete, that needs a little bit more one-on-one coaching. All right, so let's define two different things. We've got our gen pop. That's where we're landing. We know what strength is. It's kind of varying depending on what we're doing. Now we need to build strength. How do we do that? There's two things we have to do in order to build strength. Number one is called the adaptation principle, okay? Adaptation principle is pretty simple. If you do something, the body will adapt to it, all right? So if you go out and let's say you do, every day you go to work, okay, and you drive the same way to work every day. Have you ever caught yourself just being in tunnel vision and you're like, oh my gosh, I just drove, I don't know how many miles. I can see you in the mirror, by the way.
Oh, sorry.
You drove, I don't know how many miles, and I don't even remember the stop signs. I don't remember stoplights. I don't remember traffic, whatever. You were just in this mode, this tunnel vision, and it just happened, right? That's adaptability. That's your brain adapting to your environment, being able to predict things, okay? There's a lot more psychology with that as well. But what I'm saying is that the adaptation principle is something that is important. So let me read you a definition really quick. The body will adapt to the stress of exercise with increased fitness, okay, if the stress is above the minimum threshold. Okay, that means that if you're doing something at a minimum threshold, the body's just going to kind of coast. It's on cruise control, just like in your car. Okay, it's just running flat, nothing's happening. The minute you increase the threshold, that would be lifting weights, resistance training with bands, running up a hill, whatever it might be, then the body starts going into more of a rev up mode. It's like, oh, wow, here's something new. I need to amp it up a little bit. And it's going to adapt. However, it takes a while for that adaptation to happen. It can take up to 8 weeks for strength to increase. So if I'm doing something like bicep curls, if I'm in the gym, I'm taking a dumbbell right here. A dumbbell is just like 2 weights with a handle, and I'm curling it like this, and I'm just doing that for 2 weeks. My body's not really adapting. There's like a shock and awe at first, and your body's like, oh my gosh, I gotta increase more, but it doesn't actually build more muscle. It doesn't build more fibers until about the 8-week period. That's when it's like, okay, yeah, we need more. Let's give it more. Okay, let's give it more protein, more muscle protein, more of this stuff. Okay, and then that's kind of where that happens. So 6 to 8 weeks is kind of when we start seeing differences. That's why we do our 6-week pushes, is because with 2 of those pushes, you can really see a huge amount of change from day 1 to then. Okay, so keep that in mind. Adaptation principle has to happen. We have to increase that threshold, otherwise things don't work. Number 2, the second principle is our overload principle. Okay, overload is going to be kind of, some people call it a progressive overload. So it's in stages, like stair stepping. Okay, what this is basically, I'll read you the definition. Overload principle is muscles that will increase their size and strength when they're forced. Okay, so there's part of that adaptation principle. When they're forced to contract at tensions close to the maximum. That means that when I'm doing that bicep curl, I'm forcing my muscles to adapt because I'm overloading them, right? There's more of this than there is just it flaccid on the table, okay? There's more contracting. There's more going on with almost at the maximum, my maximum strength, if you want to say it that way, for a longer period of time. And so those 2 principles together will build strength. Now, I'm kind of scratching the surface with a lot of this. There's a lot more involved with that, but those are the 2 principles we're going to build on moving forward. Okay? Adaptation and overload. We have to have both of them working together. Otherwise, you cannot build strength. Physiologically, it will not happen. Okay? All right. Let's see, let's define a couple of other terms, all right? Especially if you're a little bit new to this, you're like, what is a rep? What is a set? I hear people talking about reps and sets. I see it on TikTok. I see it on Instagram. What are they doing? What's going on? Okay, a rep is basically a repetition, okay? That's me taking a weight, 1 rep right there. Full contraction all the way, full contraction. That's a rep, okay? So a set of those, let's say I want to do 10 reps. So I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then I would rest. Okay. I would come back 30 to 60 seconds later and do another set of 10. Okay. So a set is just a multiple sets of reps. That's all it is. Okay. It's very simple. You should probably comprehend that by now. How many reps and sets are ideal for building weight? Well, the research, depending on what muscle fibers you're trying to target, we're not going to dive into that deep. Okay, we're going to kind of scratch the surface. Again, if we're going to be doing a little bit more in-depth coaching on this stuff, we'll kind of do this one-on-one. But there is variability with the amount of working out that you need to do to build the type of strength that you need to build. Okay, for instance, if you're going for more endurance training, you're going to probably have less of something and more of something versus if you're doing strength training, if you're trying to build more muscle. Okay. So I would say 4 to 12 something like that, if you can stay within those amount of set or reps, you're going to be good. Okay. So 4 to 12. I know that's a big spread, but again, it depends on what you're doing. Okay. All right. So, let's kind of talk about something that's really important. All right. This is kind of where we need to start doing notes. You're going to want to reference this again, when you watch this back as a replay. But number one, let's talk about building a routine. There's a couple of things that we have to talk about building a movement routine. Some of the challenges that we give you guys as tribe tools, with the weekly challenge, that kind of stuff, those are things that we make up, that are they're kind of easy, and they're designed to kind of hit everybody at once. They're a broad spectrum, if you will. Just like an antibiotic, it's designed to hit a bunch of different types of bacteria at one time. That's what these movement challenges are designed to do. They're not always going to be great individual achievements. They're just designed to get you guys moving. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to focus on where you are. Okay, so let's say you can't do a squat. Why are we doing a squat in the first place? We're going to cover that in a minute. But if you can't do a squat, then what could you do? All right. So we're gonna come up with a couple of definitions for how to move back and forth between different exercises. All right. But number one, doesn't matter if you're an elite athlete, doesn't matter if you're just getting off the couch for the first time, does not matter how good you are at working out. I don't care. Everybody has to start at this one part. Okay. Even the research shows this. If you don't have this, you can't have the rest. Okay. It's a foundation of movement. And it's not even a movement. It's breathing. We breathe over 20,000 times a day. It's subconscious, meaning that it's automated. It's automatic. We don't even think about it. We can switch it on to where we can hold it, right? We can breathe faster, we can breathe slower, but at the fundamental core operation, it's automatic. And so we do this daily to get oxygen, but there's also a lot of other reasons why we breathe. Okay. One of them is to get movement throughout the entire core. Okay. You're going to hear this terminology core a lot, and it kind of gets mixed up in the definitions. There's like, oh, do this core workout. Well, the core only works if you're able to activate it. Okay. There's a lot of people out there doing core workouts that don't know how to breathe, that don't know how to really move properly. Therefore, they're not even really working out the core. They're actually going more towards an injury state. Okay. And that's why a lot of people get hurt when they're working out, because they don't really know what they're doing and they don't really start at the fundamental. Breathing. How do we breathe? Well, if you look at me breathing right here, you can't really tell that I'm breathing, probably because I have a black shirt on. But at the same time, when we're born, if you watch a baby breathe, you'll see their belly move. If you ever seen that on an infant, you'll see their belly actually move instead of their chest. And that's proper. Okay, that's normal. What needs to happen is that we have a diaphragm that's right below the rib cage. And that diaphragm is basically designed to lift our rib cage and kind of pull down our rib cage to help our rib cage open and expand. Okay. What happens is that we get dysfunctional breathing often, especially if you're doing computer work, you're doing data entry, we're looking on our phone, we're on a device, we're sedentary. What happens is that the diaphragm actually starts to turn off, and the chest and the neck muscles, we call them accessory breathing muscles, they actually start working. And that's why we get a lot of tension headaches, why we get a lot of shallow breathing to where we're out of breath all the time. Because what happens is that we try to elevate our rib cage. If you ever watch, just people watch people breathe, and they'll breathe where their chest is breathing up and down. Their shoulders are going up and down like this. And they're breathing with their neck and shoulders instead of breathing with their diaphragm, which is what we're supposed to do. And so when you talk about movement, you can't do movements, okay? If I'm doing this, I can't do that when those muscles are breathing for me. And so other muscles have to pick up the slack. And then all of a sudden, I'm getting hurt because the muscles that are actually moving me aren't designed to do that. And so there's a whole cascade that happens because we don't breathe properly. So how do we do this? The easiest way, and we'll do a video on this and post it to the YouTube and the social media accounts. That way you guys can have a reference for this. We were going to demonstrate it today a little bit, but Aaron's just not feeling it. So I think it'd be a better option to actually record it and walk through it to where you can really get a good idea on what we're talking about. Now, breathing, the easiest way to do this is to lay on your back because your body senses stability. Your body has to be stable at all times, okay? So one of the easiest ways to do this is to give it stability. Lay on the floor, okay? So the body can actually use that as a stable pad. So we lay on our back and our feet are flat on the ground, okay? So our knees are going to be bent. If you looked at somebody from the side and they're laying on their back with their knees bent and their feet flat on the floor, they kind of look like a fishing hook. You ever notice that? We actually call that the hook lying position. Simply put, it looks like a fishing hook. Okay, so that's the way that we're going to start. Then what you're going to do is you're going to place your hands on your belly, just like this, right around your rib cage. Okay, what I want you to do is you're going to focus on trying to breathe in to your hands. Okay, our whole goal is to actually breathe 360 degrees around our body. Okay, so I'm breathing out this way towards you guys. My back part is actually breathing towards behind me, and then my sides are breathing out to the sides. That's how I want to breathe. Okay, so it's going to be weird. One of the easiest ways to figure this out is something called a Lewitt breath. It's basically like blowing out birthday candles. What you're going to do is you're just going to lay there on the ground and you're going to act like there's a giant candle in front of you, and you're going to take a big breath in and blow out really fast. Okay, we're not going with our cheeks. We're not doing that kind of a blow. It's more of a, almost like you're coughing, like that, where you should feel your diaphragm activate. Okay, that's called a Lewitt breath, and what that is designed to activate that diaphragm and get it to hit really hard, so you can expel that air really forcefully. Okay, that can help to start give you the feeling of, okay, what do I need to do? For me specifically, the way that I train my breathing when I'm feeling back pain, when I'm feeling anything, because that's a whole nother point of this, is like when we deal with pain, breathing is always something that's dysfunctional. And so what I do is I picture a tiny little balloon inside my belly right here, okay? And I picture myself breathing in to that balloon. I'm sucking in air and I'm filling it down right here. Does that make sense? Instead of filling my lungs up here, I'm filling that balloon here. So when I breathe, I feel like all of that air is going down into here. And what it's doing is it's making my diaphragm activate and making my diaphragm come alive. Okay? And so that's what that activation means. It means turning on, it's coming on, it's coming alive. Okay? So that's one of the things that you can do. And breathing is vital. Again, we're going to do a video on this to kind of help you all go through it. Now, there's another part of this that is like part 2 of the fundamental, and it's called intra-abdominal pressure. We call it IAP for short, but it's intra-abdominal pressure, and that's pressure being developed into your abdomen to protect your core and to get the core to protect the body. The easiest way to demonstrate this is picture a soda can, okay? Just like a regular soda can. You've got a top and a bottom, right? When you have a full can that hasn't been opened, okay, you haven't popped the top yet. When you have a full can, a lot of people can actually put that on the ground, and if you step on it, a lot of times it'll hold your weight. Obviously, there's going to be a threshold. If I were to step on it, I'd probably still crush it just because I'm heavier. But a lot of people can actually step on that soda can and it doesn't crush. The minute you open the top, however, and then step on it, yeah, it crushes because it's pressurized. Before you pop the top, that soda can is pressurized. It has a top lid and a bottom lid in the walls. Our core does the exact same thing. Okay? Our core, our top lid, okay, picture our whole trunk, this whole system right here is a soda can. My top lid is my diaphragm. The walls are my core. That's my abdominal muscles and my back muscles all the way around. Okay? And then the bottom lid, or the bottom of the can per se, is actually my pelvic floor. You hear that magical term all the time. Yes, everybody has a pelvic floor, and yes, almost everybody's is dysfunctional. And so it's vitally important to have both top and bottom working, as well as the walls, to build pressure within the body so that you can actually do movement. So here's another thing to write down. In order to have mobility with our hands, our feet, our hips, our shoulders, our neck, our head, in order to have mobility, we have to have stability here. Okay? Simply put, I tell my students, you have to have proximal stability in order to have distal mobility. That's kind of our catchphrase for that. So we have to have stability here to have mobility here. Okay? It's the same way that you're not able to, nobody would ever do this, by the way, but if you're in a canoe in the middle of a lake with a cannon, again, nobody's going to do this, but if you were to try to shoot a cannon, okay, an old school like cannonball cannon from a pirate ship in a canoe, that cannon, when it would shoot, it would just move the canoe. Does that make sense? Because there's no stability. If you shoot a cannon from land, then it actually shoots the cannonball. Okay? But what would happen is if there's no stability there, it's just going to shoot. And so that's kind of what happens. We have to have that stability. Okay? And it works in patterns in our entire body. Our elbow. The elbow is very stable. It's a stable joint. It only goes in these directions here. The elbow does not like to go this way. It doesn't want to go in way. It doesn't want to rotate. Now your forearm rotates, but that's not the elbow. Okay? The elbow goes up, flexion and extension. That's what the elbow does. It's very, very stable. Why? So that everything around it can move. Your wrist is very mobile. Imagine your elbow. If it wasn't stable and then you tried to move your wrist around, you'd have a floppy arm. Okay? This is a pattern that we see in our body everywhere. Every joint is alternating stable and mobile because of this principle. You have to have stability in order to have mobility. Okay? And so if you don't have that, if you don't have this fundamental principle built, or you're not owning it, which is what we like to call in, working with patients and clients, like you've got to own this movement before you can move on. And so a lot of times we'll start people just breathing and just core activation for 2 to 3 weeks just to build that skill, because it's really just like using any other muscle. It's a skill that you have to kind of learn. Okay. All right. So that's kind of the 2 fundamental things that we've covered so far. All right. I hope everybody's tracking along. I'm going to zip through the second part of this pretty quick. There is an order of operations for a proper movement plan. A lot of times on TikTok, a lot of times on Instagram, you'll see people just doing like random workouts. They hardly ever show warm up. They hardly ever show recovery. They hardly ever show any kind of movement preparation. Nothing like that. It's just for views and for clicks. And the more extreme and the more sexier it is, the better clicks they're going to get. And the more clicks they're going to get, and the more money they're going to get. Not all of them. In fact, probably 95% of them are junk, and you don't need to be doing it. Okay? There are some of you, I'm going to call some of you out, that are running, and you shouldn't be running because you can't even breathe properly, let alone run properly. Okay? So there's a lot of things that we're probably doing that we probably shouldn't be doing, that we're just risking injury in the future. Okay? So there is an order of operations. I want you to write this down. There's 6 different things that we're going to incorporate into a movement plan. Number 1, it's going to be soft tissue work. Okay? What do you mean, soft tissue? Soft tissue, that's your muscles, your ligaments, things like that. I'm not talking about stretching. I'm talking about more of an aggressive type of soft tissue. So we're talking about foam rolling. Okay, foam rolling is a pretty common practice in the fitness world. There's millions of videos online on how to foam roll properly. What I would start with is just a soft foam roll that's 6 inches in diameter. Okay, you can buy it on Amazon. You can buy short ones that are just about 12 inches long, all the way to 36 inches long. Okay, foam rolling, just a beginner foam roller. Okay, and there's many different ways to be able to foam roll. So you're going to spend about 5 minutes doing that. You can also use a hypervolt or a percussion massage, a Theragun. You can buy the cheap ones on Amazon. I have one of those, but I also have a really nice Theragun or a hypervolt that you can feel the difference in quality. So depending on where you want to go with that, both of them get the job done, but one's going to obviously last longer and work better than the other one. So those are the two soft tissue options that I would recommend for movement preparation, because that's kind of what we're doing. We're trying to build a routine that is going to prep us for proper movement and then move. Okay. Now keep in mind, when we're doing movement, we're working out and we're trying to build strength. This is like, this doesn't have to happen every day. We're talking about maybe 2 to 3 times a week of this type of routine. Then the rest of the days of the week, you might be just doing more light conditioning type of stuff. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But number 1 was soft tissue work, okay? Number 2 is going to be breathing and activation. That's kind of what we were talking about with our Lewitt breath, blowing out the candles. So literally, 10 breaths of that, you're probably going to be a little sore down here in the diaphragm area just from doing that, because it's such an intense activity, but it's something that's needed. So kind of movement, it kind of preps your body for that movement with doing those breathing activities. Now, I have a whole category of exercises that fall into that movement activation category. We can't go through all of that here, but that's kind of more that one-on-one stuff that I'm talking about. There's a whole category, like a whole section of exercises I have for those. But there's many different ones online as well. Okay. For instance, one of the ones that my favorite is that hook lying position we were talking about, laying on your back, feet flat on the floor, knees bent. You basically do a pelvic tilt. Again, I don't have time to go into all this stuff, but you do what's called a posterior pelvic tilt. You take your pelvis and roll it back and put the middle of your low back onto the ground. And then what you do is you breathe, but at the same time, you're going to put your arms, okay, so your wrist and everything, back on the ground, and you're going to slide them up as far as you can while you're breathing. And we call that a floor slide. You're sliding your arms back up and you're breathing and activating at the same time. These aren't hard movements, but I've had elite athletes in my office to where I've done stuff like this and they're sweating. They're smoked already just because they're not used to activating these at such a high level. Okay. That's what I want you guys to start with, because that's going to give you better gains. It's going to give you better recovery, better results in the end run. Okay. So again, number 1 was soft tissue. Number 2 is breathing and activation work. And then again, that's only 5 minutes. Maybe 3 to 5. Okay. So not very much time. Then we're going to go to mobility. So a lot of you, including myself, I'm speaking to myself because I'm in that Gen Pop stage as well. A lot of us have, water, right? Water's huge, okay? A lot of us have mobility issues. For me specifically, I've got sticky hips, okay? And I have a left ankle that is dysfunctional from being rolled, from having other stuff going on. And so my left ankle doesn't move as well as my right. So that would be a target area for me to mobilize. There's different mobility areas. So let's say for you, let's say your low back is something that's really tight all the time. Then this would be an area for 5 minutes. You would focus on mobilizing your low back. You would maybe do a couple of movement like stretches, or you would like do some extension based exercises where you're doing like a cobra pose, okay, like a yoga cobra pose, some stuff like that. Okay, so again, this is highly personalized with this area, but for me, my ankle, I will do like ankle mobilization. So I will actually take a band and wrap it around my ankle and actually get my ankle to mobilize. Okay, again, I can kind of show you some of this stuff more personalized, but that's about 5 minutes for that mobility. So again, number 1 was soft tissue, number 2 was breathing, number 3 is mobility. Again, we're prepping for movement. This is all under the umbrella of movement preparation. We haven't even touched a weight yet, but I guarantee you at this point, your heart rate's already going to start getting up. You're already maybe going to start sweating, especially if you're foam rolling your back and you're having to support yourself. It's going to feel like a workout already. Okay. And we haven't even started. All right. Number 4 is our active warm up. Again, this is going to be 3 to 5 minutes. This is the stuff where we're maybe just getting moving, getting some cardio stuff, our heart rate pumping, our blood going. Maybe you're just jumping. Yes, jumping is great movement prep, where you're just jump 10 times up and down, okay? Maybe start with like little hops, little bunny hops, and then graduate all the way into like a full-blown hop, okay? Those are great movement prep things because they're also like full body workouts, okay? And so we're prepping for that movement with our active warm-up. Another great one is jump roping. So jump roping for 3 to 5 minutes, okay? Another one is skipping or running backwards. Now be careful. If you aren't very spry anymore, do not try to run backwards because you will end up on your back. Promise you, okay? But running backwards is a great way to do this. Shuttle runs, skipping, we call them karaoke runs, okay? Where you see people going back and forth like this. Running with high knees. You see that in like football movies, things like that. That's all movement prep, and that's the reason why they're doing that, is to get the blood moving, getting the joints lubed up, getting them warm, that kind of thing, okay? So again, that's 3 to 5 minutes of this. So number 1 was our soft tissue, 2 was breathing, 3 is mobility, 4 is active warm-up, and then 5 is kind of optional because you can combine 4 and 5 if you really want to, but we're talking about upper and lower body plyometrics. Plyometrics are just power movements. These are going to be explosive movements. They're designed for the body to get into a powerful mode of transportation. This can be just standing long jump, okay, like a long jump, just a broad jump. This could be a sprint, okay, just from a sprinter stance all the way and just sprint a short distance. This could be something like like a medicine ball. So some of you are in the gym and you know those like 8 to 10 pound medicine balls. These are great ones to throw into a cement wall, okay? Explosive movements, getting everything moving, okay? Jumping, okay? Jumping onto a box, so plyometric boxes. Those are those wooden boxes, or preferably the soft ones, or don't do the metal ones because it'll rip you to shreds. But you see people jumping up steps. This would be a great way to do that. Take like a 4 to 6 inch step. If you're not used to jumping, 4 to 6 inches is going to seem like a huge distance. Ask Erin about her front porch step over here, okay? Took her months to figure that out, and it's only about that high, right? And so what you can do is build up your skill for those, all right? So plyometrics are a great way to movement prep, okay? You can kind of see the progression here. We've started with really kind of light, easy, soft tissue stuff. We've got joints starting to warm up and move and get lubed up with there's like oil. We have body oil, we call it something different, but there's all of our joints that are supporting that kind of weight. A lot of them have fluid in them, so it's getting that warmed up and moving. There's a lot of neurology involved with all of this stuff too. So that's kind of our 5. Again, you can kind of combine that with 4 and 5. So number 1, soft tissue, 2, breathing, 3, mobility, 4 was our active warm-up, 5 was our upper and lower body plyometrics, and number 6, strength training. We finally got to the weights, okay? Now we're only looking for about 15 to 20 minutes of strength training, okay? you can kind of see how everything's within 60 minutes, you should be done. You shouldn't be working out longer than that. Okay. I will give you an example. Mike Boyle is a strength and conditioning coach for the Boston Red Sox. And so he runs a huge strength and conditioning outfit up on the East Coast. And some of you up there may have heard his name before. But he is the master in our industry of all of this stuff. And a lot of this kind of programming is stuff that him and his team has researched and done the hard work with their boots on the ground and come up with these routines that are proven to work. And so his general population client only works out 2 to 3 times a week maximum for 60 minutes each time doing these things. Okay. And they do them for 12-week periods. Why 12 weeks? Same reason why we do 6-week pushes. Okay. Because it's based on physiology. Every 6 weeks, your body's starting to change stuff. Okay. And it takes that long to make physiological changes. And so that's what they do. And so that's kind of the way that I program my people as well, is going through some of that training and incorporating that. So that's where a lot of this comes from, right? All right. So that's kind of our order of operations. We've got our soft tissue, our breathing, mobility, our active warm-ups, our explosive movements, and then our strength training. Now, your strength training is going to be highly individual depending on where you're at. However, it needs to incorporate 10 different movements. I know I'm blowing you, like this may be way too much for you, but again, this is kind of stripped down. Okay. So we've gone from what are the things that we need? We need to breathe. We need to activate our core. We know how to do these things now. Okay. You're going to get better at it, especially when we do the videos, but we've got those 2 things. Sorry, I had a hair in my mouth. My mustache sheds every once in a while and it's not very fun. But we have those two things. Now we can build our strength, our routine based on those components that we went over with the 6 different components. But our strength training has to have 10 different movements in it because that's what the body does. Okay. Number 1 is explosive. You're going to want to write these down. Explosive. We've kind of already done some of the explosive. So we're kind of got that box already checked off. Okay. With our plyometrics. So good to go. Now, why would you want to do explosive first? Put yourself in the mind frame of being in the gym, being outside, being at home, wherever you are that you do your workout. And you go through your entire workout and then you're like, okay, now I got to do plyometrics. And then now you're trying to jump after you're already smoked, you're already fatigued, you're already done. We want to do the most neurological and physiological stressful movements first. 1, for safety. Number 2 is for, just efficacy. We want to make sure that they're working. We're doing them properly. We're giving them everything we have. So explosive is always going to go first. Okay. We're going to focus on some joints. All right. So we're going to have 10 different movement buckets. I call them movement buckets because it's like taking stuff out of one bucket and we're adding it to our recipe. Okay. You can call them boxes that we're checking off, 10 different boxes we're checking off that have to have these movements in there. Okay. Whatever idea you have. All right. Number 1 was explosive. Number 2 is going to be our hip dominant. Okay. What would be a hip dominant exercise? Can you think of something like that? You're probably thinking squat. However, squat is more knees, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Hip is actually more of a deadlift. Oh, you've been told not to ever deadlift. That's because you weren't breathing properly. That's because you weren't having core activation. That's because you weren't doing the stability work in order to have the mobility work. Okay. And so deadlifts are a highly effective exercise if you're doing them correctly and within your tolerance. Okay. So that would be a hip dominant exercise. And we'll probably wind up doing videos on these as well. Number 3 would be a knee dominant. Okay. So that would be more like a squat, right? So a squat would be more knee dominant. Yes, it works out hips. Yes, it works glute muscles. Yes, it works a lot of other things. But one of our favorites is a goblet squat. That's basically taking this right here in front of you and forming a chalice or a goblet and then going down in a squat. Why? Why do we like that one? Because the weight is out front, the weight is up high, and it puts you in the best position, the starting position for a squat. A lot of people do squats wrong because they're limited in mobility, they're limited in strength, but the goblet squat kind of centers everything together systematically and helps out with that. Okay, so that's a great way to start. Okay, we can talk about how far down on a squat you want to go. We can have those arguments later because they're very passionate people on squat form, but I would say just squat. All right, let's see. Our next one is going to be a horizontal push. Okay, horizontal push. All right, that's going to be more of like this. Does that kind of look familiar to anybody? Okay, how about a push-up? Right? So like a push-up, right? That would be a horizontal push. That needs to be a box that's checked off. Okay, so a push-up would be a great way to do that. A vertical push, so going more vertical, right? So one of these kind of movements. Well, shoot, that's what I'm doing, right? I'm just doing that right there. That's a vertical push. Another box that needs to be checked off, okay? A horizontal pull. So we had a horizontal push with our push-up. Now we're going to pull, right? So if you flip your arms around and go here, that's like a row. Okay, so in the gym, that'd be like a row, or if I was pulling a band towards me, like this, okay? That's a horizontal pull. So we had push, pull. We had a push here, vertical push. What about a vertical pull? Yeah, vertical pull, okay? So we would have a vertical pull. Now, the most ideal one, I've never been able to do one, is our body weight chin up, okay, or a pull up, okay? Chin up is here, like this, over a bar. So you got a big bar here, and you basically chin up over the bar, or a pull up, a wide grip pull up. You basically pull up like that. But that's a vertical pull. Does that make sense? So we had our push, we had our pull. Very simple. So we've got horizontal push-pull, vertical push-pull. We have our explosive, our hip, and our knees. Now let's talk about, a rotation, okay? The body rotates like this, okay? So we want to resist rotation. So we call that anti-rotation. So if I have a rotation, let's say that you, right here, you're holding a band for me, okay? I'm gonna grab that band from you and I'm gonna pull it towards me. What did I just do? I just did a horizontal pull, correct? Are you following me? So you're holding the band for me. Okay, I'm going to pull that band towards me. That's a horizontal pull. But what if I go to the side? Okay, what if I face this way? Okay, and I pull this way now. What's it going to want to do to me? It's going to want to rotate me this way. Does that make sense? Okay, so you've got the band, remember? I'm going to reach across my body. I'm going to pull that band from you, and I'm going to pull this way. What it wants to do is it wants to rotate me towards you. I want to resist that because that's part of our core. That's the sides of our core. Okay, the walls of that can. Remember, we're pressurizing. That's those muscles. So I want to resist that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand to the side with my force being you. I'm going to stand here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull this way, and then I'm going to push out. And then the more I push out, the more it wants to rotate me back. Okay, same way with an ice skater. An ice skater, if you ever watch them twirl, when they have their arms spread really wide, they kind of twirl really slow, okay? But then when they start getting closer in, they spin really fast, right? We want to do that slow rotation because there's a huge amount of rotational force there. And so what we want to do is we want to do what's called a pow-off press. A lot of you probably have never heard this word in your life. But what it is from the side, you're holding the anchor, and I'm going to pull my band towards me, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it in the middle of my chest. So you can picture that because the band's wanting to rotate me. It's wanting to come back towards the camera, okay? It's wanting to go this way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to resist that. So it's wanting to rotate me here, and I'm resisting pretty good. Now I'm going to go way out here. Now it's really, really wanting to resist me. Now it's wanting to I'm shaking, and I want to just rotate back to the anchor. So I'm going to resist that. I'm going to breathe, You know, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to breathe and I'm going to hold it for like 5 seconds. And that's going to be my anti-rotation. Then I'm going to do the other side and I'm going to burn my other rotation side. Okay. So with rotation, you've got two different sides, right? Because we rotate in 360 degrees. So you're going to get a right and a left. All right. That's rotation. Now we've got extension. This is our kind of our last one here. So let me count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So number 10 is more. I'll talk about that here in a minute. Let's go over number 9, extension. When you do a plank or a push-up, okay, same kind of movement. There is a force of gravity. So picture somebody doing a plank. This is their head. This is their feet. Okay, and they're laying like this. I can't really do that with my wrist, but they're laying flat. Gravity is wanting to push them down to the ground. Okay, we all experience this. What wants to happen is the back wants to curve, just like you're doing a cobra pose in yoga. It wants to curve backwards like this. Okay, if I'm laying on the ground doing a plank, okay, or a push-up, and gravity is wanting to extend me, it's wanting to push me into extension. Again, we're going to demonstrate these to make it a little bit easier for you. But I'm going to resist that extension, and that's what the plank is doing. And that's what a push-up is doing. So you can see some of these movements actually bundle boxes together. Okay, so like a plank would be, or a push-up would be anti-extension, but also our horizontal push. Okay, you can kind of see how it hits 2 boxes at one time. So while it sounds like a lot of different things, I need to hit 10 different movements. Oh my God, that's so much. It's really not. A squat can actually do both. If you do a goblet squat with a press out, all of a sudden you've got little things going on. If you do, you can bundle things together. That's where it takes a skilled trainer to really kind of get you in the mode. That's why you can get such a great workout within 20 to 30 minutes of doing something. Okay. And so those are certain movements that we need to go off of. Now, I've only got about 6 minutes left, and I'm almost done. But I just want to explain to you that there is different modifications. We all can't do a perfect push-up. I get that, okay? We all can't do a perfect plank. I understand. There are different modifications. We call those progressions or regressions, okay? So our baseline right here. Okay, this is the baseline exercise. Well, on one side, we can progress and get harder. Okay, so we would go up different and add different things to our exercise to make it harder. But on the other side, if the baseline you can't even do, like you can't do a push-up, then you have to regress that push-up to something that is manageable for you so that you can work up to the baseline. Okay, so the baseline is on the middle of the spectrum. You've got, progression over here and regression over here. And so if you can't do the baseline, you need to start with one of the modifications for regressions. Now, there are a lot of different ways to do this. Again, I have categories and I have Excel spreadsheets with drop downs on all of this stuff that we've built over the last 4 years. I just haven't been able to roll it out to the tribe yet because
Too busy.
I'm too busy. Yeah, that was Aaron in the background. And so how can I adapt? Let's use the push-up, okay? Ways to adapt the push-up. Well, there's how many you do, volume. If you can do a perfect push-up, maybe your progression should be, well, let's see how many I can do. Can I do 50? Can I do 100? Without having to put a weight on your back, right? You'll see a lot of people, like in the gym, like they've got a big weight on their back doing a push-up. Well, I'd like to see them just do a regular push-up. Let's see if they can do it 200 times, right? And so there's difference in volume. You could change the intensity. Maybe instead of just doing a nice slow push-up, I'm going really fast. I'm pushing myself up and then clapping and then landing, right? There's intensity. We can change the frequency of how many times we do it. Maybe I do push-ups 1 time a week. Now I'm doing them 3 times a week. Okay. The duration, that kind of goes with our volume. It's kind of bundled in together. So we can extend our duration of push-up. Maybe I do a push-up plank. So I push up, hold for a minute. Push up, hold for 2 minutes. You can kind of variate that, okay? But let's say you can't. Maybe we change our posture to regress it a little bit. So instead of doing a full push-up with my toes on the ground, maybe I just do it up against the wall. So now I'm standing, but I'm just leaning against the wall. That would be a kind of a beginning regression. You can kind of see these ways are the way, like we can take one simple exercise and put a bunch of different modifications on it without changing the exercise. Okay. We can also change our load position. Okay. So in a push-up, standard push-up, your hands are going to be basically right under your shoulders. Some of you know a military push-up. They'll actually put their hands in front of their face and go there. That's way harder. Okay. Still a push-up. It's just a different body position now. Okay. We can change equipment. We can change, all sorts of different things. Okay. And so keep that in mind that just because you see an example of an exercise and you can't do it, doesn't mean it can't be modified. So again, ways to adapt your movement. Think of the volume, intensity, position, our posture, load. So a mechanical load, maybe adding a weight, taking off a weight, something like that. Okay. So those are ways to adapt. And then what do you do on the off days, Dr. B? So I'm only doing this 2 or 3 times a week, this whole program right here. What do I do on the other times I'm not doing it? This is where I would do conditioning. Okay. This is going to be just general movement. Maybe you walk, maybe you do intervals. Maybe you like to go hiking, cycling, whatever it might be. For instance, you could do non-impact stuff, low impact. So biking, swimming, rowing, okay? Rowing on a machine is a great cardiovascular, great full body movement, but low impact, doesn't hurt your knees, okay? Walking is another low impact. You can do high impact stuff. I wouldn't recommend that unless you're more in that athlete stage, but high impact technically is running, sprinting, or jogging, okay? And jumping can kind of fall into that too if you're doing the plyometric jumps and stuff like that. Other low impact might be pushing a sled. You see people on movies and things, but that's a great, powerful workout. It's just pushing a sled around, and then it's low impact. Another thing could be like slides. So literally you take furniture sliders and you can make those an exercise equipment. And so there's a lot of different things you can do with sliders. You can take a push-up. Picture yourself in a push-up with your feet on a slider, and now you're doing, like, you're bringing your knees up, okay? Or you're bringing your legs side to side, okay? That's a huge, like, conditioning workout that you can do that's low impact, okay? Mountain climbers, there's all sorts of different things that we do a lot of, already that would fit into this conditioning section, okay? So that's kind of all I've got to start, all right? I know it was a lot. It was a fire hose coming at you, and you're trying to just drink, okay? But take it in little steps. We broke it down from the very beginning. What was strength? We talked about our adaptation principle and our overload principle, that we have to have those two things in order to be able to create change. And then we talked about where to start. So we have to start with breathing, and we have to start with our core. Remember that soda can being pressurized. Our diaphragm, our pelvic floor, and our core walls all the way around have to pressurize in order for this. So I would spend, if you don't feel like you have that, I would spend at least 2 weeks on developing that before you start doing some of these other movements. Our routine had 6 different categories in it, okay, that it needs to incorporate. We had soft tissue work, we had breathing, we had activation, we had active warm-ups, we had upper and lower body plyometrics, and then we have our strength training aspect, okay? Then we had our buckets of movement, or our boxes of movement that we need to check off for everything, okay? And so one of those is going to be our explosive movements that we took care of already. One of those is going to be our hips, our knees, horizontal push, horizontal pull, vertical push, vertical pull, okay? Then we had our anti-rotation. We want to resist rotation, and we want to resist extension. Okay, and so those are our buckets that we wanted to go off of, and then we had our ways to adapt our movement that we just covered. Okay, so that's kind of a recap of everything that we went over. So keep in mind that this is highly individual, and this is highly it can change in a heartbeat, okay, depending on how much energy you have that day, okay? And so I just, if you have questions, definitely reach out to me. You can reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, shrinkingtribe@gmail.com as well. I check that multiple times a day, and so hopefully that can help you. So I'm going to turn this back over to Erin. That way she can close it down and give you all your homework and all that kind of stuff.